This episode of Reigning in Life is going to greatly impact your life. I imagine some of you watching have been through traumatic experiences in your life, and there is great power and testimony when Jesus comes into the places where there has been trauma and wounding, and He sets you free to see others set free. You do not want to miss this show with my special guest, Becky Albert.
Arise and stand up. Discover today how to reset your life and how to overcome the schemes of the enemy and his demonic army. Through prophetic kingdom strategies, together we will become the influencers God has called us to be and see our families, cities, regions, and nations transformed. Walk into a fresh encounter with the Lord and see victorious answers to prayer today on Reigning in Life with Becca Greenwood.
Well, welcome to today's show, and I have a very special guest, a dear, dear friend of mine, Becky Albert, and she is an amazing woman of God. She's a prophet. She's an intercessor. She has an incredible testimony, and so, Becky, I'm so thrilled to have you on the show, and she also has a ministry, Armies Arising, and where she trains prayer warriors and prophetic intercession. And we have traveled the nations together. So not only is Becky an amazing woman of God, she's one of my closest friends, but she has an incredible, powerful testimony that I know is going to bless your life. And for many of you, it's going to help you come into a place of beautiful freedom from any trauma that has occurred in your past. So, Becky, I want to say welcome.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my honor to have
you.
I love you too. And so, I want you to start. Why don't we start when you were 5? Because I know her testimony really well. And why don't we start from when you were the age of 5?
Okay.
And when you had that encounter with Jesus.
I did. At age 5, I was, raised in church and always knew about God. And it was a Wednesday night at church, and we were having a special service. And being 5 years old, I got sleepy because church went a little bit long. And I fell asleep on the pew. And just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard the pastor giving an invitation for people to come and accept Jesus. So I close my eyes, and I almost instantly see Jesus walk into the room. And he walked right in front of the podium where the speaker was, and he came and he sat right down beside me. And he picked me up, and he put me on his lap, and he allowed me to lay my head against his chest. And I felt such love and such peace and such a knowing of the power of Jesus. And no one had to tell me it was Jesus. At 5 years old, I knew it was Jesus. And he said to me, "Becky, would you like to live for me?" And everything inside of me said, "Yes, I would like to live for you." He laid me back down. I went right back to sleep, and I watched him walk out of the room. He stopped at the edge of the room, and he turned around, and he looked at me, and he smiled. And I knew that he was pleased. In my 5-year-old mind, I knew that he was very pleased that I had said, yes, I wanted to live for him. And Becca, within about 2 weeks, one of the things he told me when I was leaning on his chest, he said, "Becky, everything is going to be okay." Within about 2 weeks after that encounter with Jesus, I began being sexually abused. And my abuser found me, is the way I put it. And that led to many years of traumatic sexual abuse in my life as a child. And I credit that encounter with Jesus at the beginning for saving my life, because the emotional damage and the trauma that was happening not only in my body, but Becca, in my soul,
Right.
It was in my mind, my will, my emotions. I was being destroyed
Right.
From the trauma. And I could remember through those years Jesus telling me it was going to be okay. And I could remember the feeling of being held by him and knowing that kind of love. You know, I had a great home life. My parents were loving and wonderful.
And of course, you probably never told them what was happening.
Oh, no.
To you. Were you threatened by the one that was abusing you?
Absolutely. Your abusers will threaten you. You can't tell, you won't tell. And I felt like what happened to me was my voice was cut off. I withdrew completely into myself, and I had no ability to communicate what was happening to me. I was so scared. There was just such fear that came into my life, and it completely shut down who I was. As I was trying to grow up in life and mature, you know, I was so damaged and so wounded that I couldn't reconcile in my mind this Jesus that I had encountered and this horrific abuse that I was suffering.
Right.
And I became very angry with God, and I became very angry at life, and was very rebellious. About age 15, I decided that I really didn't want to live anymore. The abuse had stopped because that section of abuse had stopped for me with that particular abuser. And I had finally said to him, I'm going to tell my dad on you. And of course, he said all the things an abuser will say. You are stupid, you are ugly, you are a child, and no one will ever believe you. I am the one they will believe, and if you tell, I'll tell them it was all your fault. And throughout the course of the abuse, that's what they would hone in on, is that it's your fault. You are dirty, you are bad, you are a bad little girl. And I believed that, Becca, because they were adult and I was a child.
How many years did that go on, Becky?
About 6 years. And then, like I said, at about age 15, I decided that I couldn't cope with life anymore. It was just too hard. My parents lived across the street from a beautiful park in town, and I wandered over into this park one day to sit down under a tree and decided I really was going to have to figure out a way to end my life.
So you really were suicidal.
I was very suicidal, very suicidal. And once again, sitting underneath the tree in the park, contemplating how I could end my life and how I could just get out of the pain and the turmoil that I felt, because my parents, I knew that they loved Jesus, and I knew that he was good, and I had experienced his love and his goodness, but yet I was having this horrible person who, by the way, was a member of our church, who, by the way, was a Sunday school director, who, by the way, everyone thought was wonderful. So I had this picture of God, and I had the loving picture of God. And it became too much. And I decided I was going to end my life sitting under the tree in the park and deciding exactly how to do that, because I was afraid to do it, but I didn't want to live anymore. The desire to die was greater than the fear of how I would end my life. So once again, the wind begins to blow, and this peace begins to envelop me, and Jesus comes again. And he says, Becky, if you'll allow me, I will heal you.
Wow. And so he comes to you even in that midst.
Even in the midst.
At the point, friends, at the point where she was contemplating, how am I going to take my life? So I want you to come back. I want you to stay tuned. We will return in just a little bit, because as we keep going into this testimony, it is so powerful how God stepped in, Jesus stepped in to save Becky and to bring her into a place of freedom and victory. We'll see you soon.
Becca Greenwood is a minister and prophet, best-selling author, and a professor at Wagner University. Based in Colorado, she travels extensively around the world, teaching on deliverance, prophecy, spiritual warfare, leadership, and personal transformation. She and her husband Greg lead the Strategic Prayer Apostolic Network, a prayer organization mobilizing an army of prayer warriors to stand and possess the land. For the past 30 years, she has assembled and led prophetic intercession and spiritual warfare prayer journeys to over 45 nations, resulting in transformational breakthrough within spheres of government and the marketplace. With a passion to spread the gospel and see the glory of God impact the world, her heart's cry has become, "Lord, give me the nations." Through her ministry, books, online teaching, and schools, Becca will equip you to possess your land and come into personal wholeness and freedom. To join Becca, go to reignginlifetv.com and check out all of her resources.
Welcome back. And Becky, I just really want to say thank you so much for being willing to come on the show and to really share your testimony in a very public manner. I know you've written the book, I Have a Voice,
Yes.
and which is this testimony.
Yes.
And the Lord told you to do this.
He did.
But friends, really, this is the first time she's gone very public in such a way with this testimony. And we're doing this because of how the Lord, you're going to hear what Jesus has done in her life.
Absolutely.
And so we were at that place
Yes.
where you were contemplating suicide. How am I going to kill myself?
Yes, desperate. I was in a desperate place,
And
dark.
Jesus
And Jesus came again.
came again.
Yes, he did. And you know, Becca, I would like to say that that encounter changed everything, but what it did for me was it caused me to once again desire to live. The desire to live became greater than the desire to die at that point.
So awesome.
And life wasn't over for me with abuse at that point.
Right.
And I had many years in my teenage years and my early adult years of trying to kill the pain. Lots of rebellion, whatever substance I could find so that I didn't think and I didn't feel. In and out of marriage. Finally married a man who I thought was the answer to everything. And he became extremely abusive.
You know, and I want to say something right here because that happens.
It does happen.
Many times when someone has been through traumatic abuse as a child.
Yes.
It's because of that abuse, there's almost like a being drawn into
Right.
relationships
Right.
that will prove to be unhealthy. Ones you think are going to be
Exactly.
good, but that will end up being unhealthy. So
Right.
go ahead, share a little bit more.
It's like predators are attracted to you.
That's a great way to put it. That's
Yeah.
right.
So I had
right.
many predators. I had predators in workplace, predators in school. But this man became my worst nightmare and brutally attacked me on a consistent basis. And I finally, after one beating, decided that I couldn't stay anymore. And I went home to my parents, and I realized about 2 weeks later that I was pregnant with his child. And so there was something inside of me that kept saying, don't tell him, don't tell him. But I did because I felt like he had the right to know. And so I went back because of the baby.
Yeah.
And about 6 months into my pregnancy, the beatings began again. And the final beating was him throwing me down a flight of stairs. And my son came prematurely. And he was born with many issues as a result of the abuse that I had suffered. And once again, they've just told me that my premature child will be blind, that he will never mature in his mind. He was born with an arm deformity. And my ex-husband was so disgusted that I had birthed this child that he wouldn't even stay at the hospital with me. So I'm laying in a room by myself, and they're giving me this news about my child. And once again, here comes Jesus. And he says to me, if you'll allow me, I will heal you. And I said, I don't want anything from you, Jesus, other than, will you please heal my son? Will you do for him what I cannot do for him? And Becca, today my son is an attorney in Dallas, Texas. He has 2 beautiful sons. His mind is wonderful and sharp, and he is amazing. So
everything the doctors predicted.
Everything.
So
Jesus
once
healed
again,
him.
Jesus stepped in.
He did.
To a very traumatic situation and
Yes.
brought his healing power.
He brought his healing power. And at that point, I said, I am so broken. I have nothing left to give you. But if you will do this for my son, I will give you my life. I'm ready. I will live for you, Jesus. It's time.
So that started a process.
That started a process of healing for me. And seeing from that moment that Jesus came, my son began to improve. And all of the things, his heart was stopping, he couldn't breathe. Everything changed when Jesus came. We spent several weeks in intensive care, and I finally said yes to living for Jesus. About a year and a half later, after again being brutalized, I left my abuser for the final time, and I went home to my mom and dad. And I rededicated, actually, I just gave my life to Jesus.
Life to Jesus.
And
fully.
he began a process of forgiveness in my life. And the first thing he said to me was, about 2 years or 3 years after I had said to him, I really want to live for you, he asked me if I would forgive my abuser. And it was my ex-husband was the first one he asked me to forgive. I said, I can't do that. I can't do that. He doesn't deserve my forgiveness. And Becca, he took me to John 3:16 and 17, that God so loved the world that he gave his son, and he didn't come to judge or condemn the world, but he came that the world could be saved. And I wrestled and struggled with that until I finally knew that I had to forgive. I had very specific instructions from the Lord. He said, I want you to get on your knees. I want you to say, I forgive, and name him. And he said, then I want you to ask me to come and save him. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel like he deserved forgiveness. And I hear a lot of women who've been abused say that.
Right.
And here's my answer to that. None of us deserve forgiveness. Forgiveness is a free gift.
That's right.
That's given by God through his son, Jesus Christ, and the price that he paid on the cross. So I did it for several months, every day, and I would do it as fast as I could, and then I would stand up and not feel a thing. I felt nothing. And one day, I got down on my knees, and the power of the love of God entered my heart, and I felt what God felt for my abuser.
See, and isn't that so important about forgiveness? Because we tell people all the time, if you choose to forgive and be obedient to what the Word says, that in time, your emotions will catch up with the act of forgiveness. Of course, you did not put yourself back in harm's way with him.
I did not.
But forgiving him and learning to come into that place of obedience, and then emotions in time begin to catch up.
That's right.
And with the forgiveness. And so there's even more to come, friends. In this last segment of the show, I want you to return, because the Lord even takes her deeper through forgiveness, where her physical body was even healed from the trauma. We will see you back.
The key to effective warfare prayer is discerning what spiritual forces are at work around you. When you can sense the movement of God's Spirit and identify the enemy's tactics, you can pray with power, warring from a position of victory. Through this book, you will learn how to recognize demonic forces at work in the atmosphere and shut them down, grow in your ability to discern spiritual activity, and recognize cues from the natural world around you to enhance your spiritual discernment. When we can discern what is happening in the spirit realm, we can shut down the enemy's agendas and enforce God's kingdom purposes in our world. Discerning the Spirit Realm, the key to powerful prayer and victorious warfare, will be your handbook to discerning the invisible realm of angels, demons, and the move of God's Spirit. Get your copy today at reignginlifetv.com.
Friends, I want to welcome you back, and I really want to give Becky as much time as necessary for her to continue sharing her story, her testimony. And but there's also a little booklet we encouraged her to write.
Yes, she did.
I Have a Voice, because we knew that this testimony was so necessary for so many in the church, so many that are believers, for so many that are battling this, you know, within their homes and within their families. Right. So I Have a Voice, and her website is armiesarising.org. And so, Becky, I don't want to take more of your time because the testimony is so powerful. So we left off, you know, where you
forgiving.
You forgiving, yes.
And I did.
And you did.
Yeah, I did it.
And you did. And so that was one portion of the testimony.
Well, Becca, as a result of my being willing to forgive, God began to heal my physical body. Through all the years of trauma and all the years of abuse, I had a lot of physical issues. I had chronic bronchitis, chronic female issues, chronic migraine headaches. I was sick and in bed more than I was well.
My goodness.
And as a result of forgiveness,
yes,
God began to manifest in my physical body. And about a year after I had really earnestly forgiven my ex-husband and really wanted to see him come to the Lord, and I don't know if he was ever born again, then one day, the voice, that little, still, small voice said,
of Jesus,
said to me, it's time to forgive him. And I knew that him was my childhood abuser. And I said, no way. I'm not doing it, God. But as per usual, eventually he convinced me to forgive him. Only this time, Becca, God told me I had to forgive him face to face.
Face to face.
Face to face.
With the abuser.
With my childhood abuser.
So obviously you're not identifying this person.
No.
But at the same time, there was obviously still this person you would see from time to time.
Yes, our circle of church family friends. So I argued with the Lord for several months, and I tried to do the same thing I did before, was getting on my knees and praying, and God wasn't having it. He's like, that's not what I've asked you to do. I get a phone call, and a person on the other end of the phone says, oh, do you remember that nice man from church? And yes, I remember him. He's dying. He's in the hospital and he's dying. I hung up the phone. I fell to my knees. I said, God, I surrender. And so I quickly called my husband.
And she has a wonderful husband. Becky has a wonderful husband. We love Larry.
The best.
Yes, after the Lord got her out of that abusive relationship, she's married to a wonderful, wonderful, godly man. Yes. So please continue.
Incredible. So he drove me to the hospital.
And I imagine for Larry that was not easy.
It was not.
Either.
And
wow.
My heart was just pounding out of my chest, and the whole way there, of course, the enemy was saying, you're so stupid. Why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. This is just your imagination. But I walked into that hospital room, and I saw lying in this bed an old, frail man. And I walked over to his bed, and I put my hand on top of his. I looked him in the face, and I said, I forgive you for everything you said to me, for everything you've ever done to me. I forgive you for everything you've ever robbed from me. I forgive. And I tell you, I ran out of the room. I didn't want to stay a second longer than I had to.
Did he
but
respond?
Becca,
Did he respond?
he looked at me so shocked when I came into the room,
I can imagine.
and he just shook his head, and a single tear slid down his face. And I didn't stay long enough to find out anything else. But that day, I was free. I walked out of that hospital room free. Free, free, free. So I would like to say to anyone watching this show today that has ever been abused or is still being abused, there is freedom, and there is hope, and there is healing for you, and his name is Jesus. So Becca, can I pray?
Absolutely, please.
Father, you're a good Father, and we don't understand the struggles in life sometimes, and we don't understand why such evil is allowed. But God, you created man and set us apart from all of creation by giving us a free will. And men choose to do evil things, and women choose to do evil things. And Lord, for those who are in the hands of their abusers or have been abused, would you do for them what you did for me, Jesus? Will you encounter them in your love? Will you encounter them in your grace and your mercy? Jesus, will you come into their lives and heal them and set them free? So I speak to those who are being abused, and I said, there is hope. There is hope for you. Will you ask Jesus to come? There is hope for you to be free. There's freedom from your pain, your physical pain, your emotional pain. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter the reactions that you have had for this trauma in your life. Jesus loves you.
Amen.
And he wants to heal you. The power of forgiveness is this: my abuser no longer had power over me. And the same can be true for you if you will choose to forgive. The abuse may not stop at that moment, but Jesus will set you free because the abuser will no longer have power over this, over the person that you are. So Jesus, I thank you for your healing power, your healing love. I thank you that you heal our minds, our wills, our emotions. You restore our identity. You give us back our voice. And I thank you, Jesus, that you're healing everyone who's asking you today, that you're coming into their lives. Be filled with hope. Jesus has a place for you in his kingdom, and he wants you there beside him.
That's exactly right. And Becky, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too, girl. Amazing.
Thank you.
Look at the power of forgiveness, friends. Look at the healing power of Jesus.
Yes.
No matter what difficulty or trauma you have been in, he is right there with his perfect love.
Yes.
And in closing, I just want to say this. If there are some of you watching and you are being abused, don't keep it a secret.
Right.
Go to those who can help you.
Yes.
And do no longer allow the abuse to occur in your life. We are praying for you. We are with you. God bless you.